Howdy, all you delicious people. I am here today to review Tank Girl. So, this movie quite easily is pretty much to easily try to help people understand this film. It's basically a Harley Quinn movie before Harley Quinn was even a Harley Quinn. Funny enough that this movie is to take place in 2033, so we still have technically some time before that is to happen. But eventually, once it does, then maybe we'll have a world like this. This entire movie has an arms race of who is to have the most water. Kind of like any other kind of post-apocalyptic movie where water is a huge scarcity. But this one kind of really takes that and makes it very important, where a lot of other ones it's just like the water is part of it, but it's not a big thing. This movie makes that a big thing. So going into this movie, I would say that this movie has a huge barrage of just visual eye candy, and maybe it might not have the best story, but it does have a very much like in your face visual kind of approach to it. A lot of times it does really have to rely on the comic book visuals to also help you get through parts of this film, because I guess they could not find any actual set piece that could anywhere close match an actual like location, and so they just had to forcibly keep infusing the comic book settings by their imagery to transition them in sunspots. And there are often times where they are using comic book slices and pieces and stuff in here to kind of tell the reader where they're heading, or to help people understand what is going on at some points, or to help certain transitions that'll feel fairly slow. They speed it up by doing a animated part in a live action movie. So going into this film, this character who is Tank Girl is kind of one of those characters that you can't break me because I'm already broken. Like, this character is consistently defiant to the very end, and no one is ever going to beat her, because if anything, no one is at her level. Really, Tank Girl really is one of those kind of unstoppable forces that kind of make me think that she seems much more like a cartoon character than a real person. Really, there is some beats here that make Tank Girl almost seem similar to Jim Carrey's The Mask. That's how outlandish that she is at some points. But all of a sudden, she is to basically cause a entire room to all start sing an entire song and dance, Congo lines, and whatever within one part of this movie. And I'm just like, okay, why has this person have so much control of all of these people? But I guess it is just what it is. Really, Tank Girl, or just Lori Petty in this movie, it honestly feels like she is kind of a Woody the Woodpecker-like character, or a Bugs Bunny, or something like that. It feels like she had probably taken all of those kinds of things and kind of infused it into this character, because it seems that everything that she is doing is one, all of those things tied into one, but also has a adult appeal to everything, where everything is exaggerated, but also it's has that very consistent, defiant, jokery thing. So, basically, this movie comes into being a woman versus a corporation, or a woman versus a machine. So so what is to happen here is like teeing it up for somebody who has never heard of this movie before. What is to take place in this movie is that there is this company called Water and Power that is trying to get every piece of water on the entire planet to control it. And I guess if they are to control the water, they are to control the world. And anybody who is to try and steal or try to manufacture water for themselves, the Water and Power Company has to go after those people and try to kill them off, or in some cases, Kesley, who is Malcolm McDowell's character, he is to go and put a device into their chest that is to all of a sudden suck out the water from out of their bodies, which, when eventually is to take this and drink it, it's like basically concentrated water, or it's basically like water anyone can drink coming from somebody. But yeah, it comes out like a bizarrish looking straw that that is like an actual cup. Like, you know how those bizarrish looking straws that you would have to like pull apart and and stretch it and just and drink it like that. Like, that's how this this water device comes, and as the water is to repetitiously come out of this person's body, you see this kind of straw-like device like popping further out and eventually sucking the life out of somebody, or in this case, the body water out of somebody. So going into this, I like this film just because really just Lori Petty just sells you this movie. And like the girl who is to be Tank Girl, like I think if I think Tank Girl more sells you this movie than anything else. Like a lot of people, if like probably Tank Girl wasn't in this film and it was done some other way, I think a lot of people are just like, nah, this movie is just like, like there isn't anything exciting about it. But really, Lori Petty like makes this movie exciting, makes this interesting. And so with that said, I think we have to go into a much more interesting route and spoil this movie. So let's bust out that double five to otherwise say it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time to spoil this movie. Yeah, I think also the main reason why I chose this film is because like I've been really wanting to find some kind of like female main hero-ish like person, and like there it seems to be very rare movies that I do one enjoy, but then on top of that like have a female main presence, with the exclusion of a lot of horror films. So with that said, let's get into this movie. So in the very beginning of this film, we are to showcase that it feels like this world is a desert wasteland for the most point. So we are to showcase that this is about a time of 2033. It just kind of seems like everything, especially with Water and Power, it seems like everything is outlawed. Like they have like I think the goofiest laws where it's like you can't have an animal, or you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't try to like do any number of things, to where like Water and Power can kind of make rules up as they go. So Tank Girl is going off to go and try to find a present for her boyfriend on his birthday. And basically that's to just go and go as far out as you can to try to scavenge for any number of something from a dead body somewhere, or to try and spot some whatever trinket that could be left. Probably something as simple as boots probably would be much more of an actual birthday gift for anybody right now in this kind of world. So Tank Girl is to eventually see a dead body that is lying on the ground. Evidently, this person had been torn or ripped apart by a creature that is to be called a Ripper. It seems that this character is some like bizarrish number of random things that they are to say that this thing is, that it's like a demonic, monsterish, mutant like thing. And so basically they give visuals, like kind of quick visuals of what it is, but eventually you'll actually see what these things are later on in the film. But then I guess these things like aren't actually accurate to what, like, it just seems like these things are just murderers, but in actuality, like, they're just misunderstood. So Tank Girl goes and kind of raids this body and then brings a gift back to her boyfriend. So they are at this hideaway, or this kind of really just hole of a house. So Tank Girl is to go and deliver her boyfriend a present, but the thing is that when Tank Girl is to spot her boyfriend, she is to kind of play a game with him where she is to basically make him like strip down all the way without clothes on, because she is to mention that he is stealing water, and so he has to go and take all of his clothes off. So he does, and both the kids are to walk in on them playing this stupid game. And so both of the kids are deciding like, ugh, and so they walk off, and so immediately the whole game stops, and then like Tank Girl and her boyfriend hug it out, and with him still being, of course, without clothes. So so pushing on, so eventually Tank Girl is to kind of go into this spot and see that the girl who is to be Sam is kind of doing a wood chisel of some Ripper, and because evidently the wood had spoken to her and said Ripper. So Sam is chiseling this thing, and Tank Girl had mentioned, it's like, well, hey, like, I told you to actually chisel something else. Like, I wanted you to chisel an old-fashioned actress that I know she was in the movie, like, Moonlight Bay and, like, all kinds of, like, old black and white films, or Technicolor in some cases. I think her name was, like, Debbie? It's been a while. So, So Tank Girl wanted this girl to chisel this, but I guess like they're not probably going to have the time to, or uh, maybe Tank Girl will find this later, and eventually the one chiseled thing that Sam was supposed to chisel for her, she'll find it later. So Tank Girl is to eventually go out and kind of be outside while everyone else is just in, either sleeping or something. And we see that these people are to obtain water somehow via this seemingly way to get it. And so we also have Kesley that is to be mad at his top superior because they are to really revel in their success, basically mentioning the whole piece that I had mentioned about Adam and God. And like Kesley is just kind of mentioning like how many things of water that they have taken, and how it seems that they have the most of the power. But it seems like Kesley is mentioning that but yeah, like it seems like everything is going well, but it seems like things are starting to slowly and surely slip away from us. And Kesley is to start looking at some maps and just saying, well, what if we like lose like this part of this map here? And so all of a sudden he breaks this whole entire glass of this map, and then he mentions it's like, well, once we like start to lose this here, like we're going to all of a sudden just start losing this, and so he breaks this map that's made of glass, and so Kesley keeps going on with all of these glass maps to basically show that if they let one little thing of water slip out of their hands, that eventually all the water that they're going to have, they are going to lose. Because eventually it seems that the Rippers keep intercepting and keep taking all of Kesley's men down, and water is starting to go missing. So Kesley is just really upset with his top man at that time. And so Kesley just forcibly has his sergeant go and take off his shoes and walk to him, Kesley, through this glass. So this sergeant goes and starts walking to Kesley, and Kesley's like, you know what? You have no, like, you basically are a mindless person that has no, like, courage or anything, and, like, you'll do whatever you're told. Like, you shouldn't have come and walked over to me through this glass. Like, that was a stupid thing to do. Like, you could have said no, you could have not moved, but you came over to me anyways. So, so Kesley is telling his sergeant to get even closer to him, walking over more glass, and he does so. And so Kesley just goes and takes this, I'm going to call it a water sucker, because that'll be what it's called. So Kesley goes and attaches this water sucker device into the back of his sergeant, and so his sergeant falls over, and all of a sudden we are start to see everything of water that is to drain out of this man, and this sergeant is to die, and Kesley is to make a new sergeant out of this, Sergeant Small. Funny enough. So, like a bizarre-ish name. So, within this whole Water and Power, evidently before there used to be this Dr. John Prophet, and Dr. John Prophet used to make the creatures who had turned into the Rippers, but also Dr. John Prophet was also like a big popular doctor at the Water and Power thing. But eventually we'll find out that I guess John eventually had lived out his usefulness, till eventually they are to find him later dead, because I guess maybe he was just a little bit too nice about things and somebody just didn't like that. So Malcolm is to go and take out that water sucker device from off of his sergeant, open it up and drink the water that was, I guess, drained from his sergeant. And so now Kesley is to name Small as his new sergeant. And it's like, hey, don't let me down kind of thing. So Tank Girl, she is to go on and like have a fire lit, and is just kind of having like a kumbaya kind of time, and just kind of like just trying to have fun with all of everything that's going on. And so immediately Tank Girl is to have somebody walk up on her, and Tank Girl immediately is to think that it is her boyfriend. And so we start having Tank Girl, who is to start to cut bits of her clothing to have it all eventually, assuming that it's her boyfriend and that her boyfriend and her are going to have some fun, some adults fun, I guess. So Tank Girl repetitiously continues to cutting her overalls, cutting her pantyhose, cutting any number of things, putting holes through all of her clothes, and eventually what is to be behind her is not her boyfriend, it's to be a water and power trooper that is to say, like, no, go on, like, go ahead, like, keep going, like I'm having fun with this. And so Tank Girl is like, well, I'm gonna have fun too. And Tank Girl is to go and kill this guy off. And so Tank Girl is to notice that the water and power have made their way into their hideout and is killing a bulk of everybody with the exclusion of the kids. Tank Girl is to see her boyfriend die outside of a window and just to be riddled with bullets. Evidently, Tank Girl's boyfriend had received, I guess, boots for his birthday, and I guess that was his actual birthday present. So, sadly enough, he's not going to be able to wear them fairly long because he's going to get bullets into him. So, uh, so we go on here, and so everyone that Tank Girl was to be with had, for the most of the point, been killed off, with the exclusion of, like I said, one of the kids who is to be Sam, but and eventually I'm trying to figure out how they I think I think Water and Power actually collects Sam, the kid who chisels. Like, I think they kept her, but uh, so Tank Girl is to be taken with all of these men and be put into a plane to be sent to the Water and Power facility for her to, I guess, live out her days as mining for dirt. So Tank Girl is doing a number of jokes while this is to go on, while people are throwing dirt in her face. Tank Girl is like, well, hey, like, what time is it? Because I want to know when Baywatch is on. And all kinds of like goofy little jokes that Tank Girl is to be throwing out during these times. So eventually, Tank Girl is to eventually go and shower, and so it seems that a number of times we do have this girl who is named Jet that is consistently being hit on by Sergeant Small, and consistently this guy just will not like let up about wanting to be with Jet. Um oh, one little thing. Tank Girl was with the numerous water and power guys in that plane, and I thought it was funny how uh, basically like Tank Girl was almost offering to go and give one of these guys a BJ, and so he's like, "Well, hey, if I feel teeth, you feel lead," and so Tank Girl has this guy whip it out, and so Tank Girl is like, dude, I need a microscope and tweezers to be able to get to that thing. And so uh, Tank Girl gets hit, but then eventually Tank Girl goes and grabs this guy and snaps his neck, and all of a sudden all the other water and power guys like put their gun in Tank Girl's face to be like, what? What did I do? But anyways, going back to Jet Girl and her getting consistently having Sergeant Small being thrown at her and wanting to be with her consistently. And it just gets to the point where eventually Tank Girl is to be in her, what is to be close to being a shower, because it feels like she's just getting hit with baby powder, and then she has like a blower device that is to blow like all of this like powder away. So it just kind of feels like a very weird, like, shower. So Tank Girl is to hear that Jet and Sergeant Small are, like, going and having this whole debate yet again about Sergeant Small wanting to be with Jet, and Jet has no interest. So Tank Girl just goes and is mentioning to Sergeant Small that Jet is her girl, and so both of them kiss. And so Sergeant Small is like, oh, I guess, like, she's that way, so I'm gonna walk away here. So Jet is thanking Tank Girl for helping her, and Tank Girl is like, yeah, sure, anytime. Uh, and so eventually Jet and Tank Girl tend to spend a lot more time with one another. It seems that Tank Girl keeps uh, like latching herself on to Jet Girl or Jet, um, and eventually, the more that Tank Girl is to start to stand out, the more Kesley is like, oh my god, I can't wait to break this one. Like, I want to break this girl. So, to treat certain people a lesson, Kesley goes and takes a person through this thing called the pipe. There is this pipe that is to have people go through, that the further and further they are to go down in this pipe, the tighter and tighter it is to get on a person's body. And they are to, like, stay in there with this, like, with this tightness thing going on with them for a long amount of time until they are to be broken. And so, thinking that this is going to be a way of taking Tank Girl and eventually breaking her by keeping her in this very tight location, hoping that that this girl probably does have claustrophobia or something along those lines. So uh, Kesley Kesley goes and puts Tank Girl in this device, in this pipe, and she's like, "Oh, I want to go first." Like, immediately, she's like, "Yeah, I want to go first. Like, I want to go in there." So Tank Girl is put into this pipe, and when she is to come out of this pipe, Tank Girl is to mention to Kesley, it's like, "Hey, like, you know what? You got this big booger that's hanging out of your nose. Like, if anything, maybe you should use this finger, the middle finger, to go and pick it out." To where Kesley realizes, like, oh crap, like, I didn't break her. Like, I thought that would have worked, but I guess it doesn't. So, uh, so Kesley instead decides, since he can't break Tank Girl, then he could make her do something that is really dangerous, and that if she lives or dies, it doesn't matter, because he just can't break her and he can't really use her. And plus, also, like, she's kind of the butt of the joke for everything. And so, really, it's just kind of like Tank Girl is becoming infectious with other people, to the point of her becoming infectious to Jet. Because Tank Girl eventually goes off, and while I guess everyone is to be asleep, Tank Girl is to try to go into a tank and uh, try to get in one and try to control one, but she doesn't know the secret codes. And so Jet is to come into this hangar at night to put in the code of the tank, so that way there isn't a thing of gas that hits Tank Girl and kills her off. So Jet is to tell Tank Girl, it's like, well, hey, like, Jet knows the codes, but Jet isn't going to give the code to Tank Girl, because, like, these are, like, how is it that anyone is going to be able to just get out of here and easily just, like, like no one is going to what nobody is going to see a tank and a jet go missing. Like somebody's going to want to know about it and somebody's going to know where it is, and like eventually that's going to get Jet and Tank Girl in trouble. But so Tank Girl is playing around with this tank, but eventually it just leads for her to realize that she is not actually going to skirt away with this tank, but eventually she will find one eventually and make it her own. Sergeant Small is eventually starting to see Jet start to either help Tank Girl out or spend way too much time with her. And so Sergeant Small takes Jet's like building activities that she's been doing, putting together planes and stuff like that. He basically just grounds her because it's like, no, like I don't want you fixing anything, because if anything, like you need to like learn your place kind of thing. You need to remember where you are and you need to remember like what side you're on kind of thing. So I'm just going to ground you until you remember that. So Tank Girl is to eventually go to Kesley, or go with Kesley to have her go and try to find where the Ripper home base is. Because it seems like they have found a location where Rippers has consistently come out and attacked people. And so it also seems that there are traps that are around this spot. It seems like there are spots of quicksand around this spot where it's also the Ripper's home. So really, Kesley is seeing this as a win-win, that basically if uh, Tank Girl with a locator on her body is to find the Ripper home spot, then eventually they'll be able to figure out where the Ripper spot is for her to get down in there. Or if she dies, then I guess it's not real one true loss because they kind of didn't like her anyways. So Tank Girl is to start to make her way to this Ripper spot, and she is to start going in there, and then all of a sudden, every one of the water and power people are to start get attacked by Rippers, and so really that just leads to eventually having a bunch of people who had been hurt or almost killed by the Rippers, to where we actually see Kesley, who had lost an arm and like had lost a good portion of his face, uh, to where it has to get like covered up because I guess it's so heinous or so horrifying that no one should actually see it. So Tank Girl is to go and with all these dead bodies that are around, Tank Girl is to eventually find a actual tank and like decide, oh cool, like I can go and like kill off some of these water and power guys and then take this tank and be able to come back and go after the water power guys and take them all out, because eventually she needs to go and find Sam. Because I guess Sam was offered up to these liquid silver uh, people where they are to basically offer up women as sex slaves, and uh, they're like any number of kind of things. They're kind of like a bunch of like different kind of styles of entertainment. It seems like there's a dance number that eventually comes out of that, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. So Tank Girl is to make her way onto a tank, and at the same time, Jet is to have commandeered a jet. She was to pull the ejection cord of one of the jet pilots, and Jet was to take over one of these planes. So eventually both Jet and Tank Girl are to be uh, kind of in this location, and so they're like, well, hey, like where should we go now, kind of thing, and reasonably, it just leads them to eventually decide that they're going to go like full throttle into one, finding where Sam is, and then eventually after that, they are to probably go back and find these Rippers to maybe try and have them help both Tank Girl and Jet because they need the numbers, and really Water and Power has the numbers and they don't. So, so Tank Girl and Jet are to go on to this place where, of course, like I said, there is some liquid silver people present in this spot of buildings slash towns, and it seems that Tank Girl, with her guns and her stuff, is to easily take, I guess, the madam of this whole like place that is orchestrating all of this. Tank Girl is to grab onto her and to hold her hostage to make everybody sing a song called "Let's Do It." It's kind of like an old Broadway song that it's like, let's do it, let's fall in love. So all of a sudden we have the liquid silvers and all of everybody just dancing along in choreographed like schemes. Plus we also have Tank Girl that has to also bizarrely have this once she makes it to this place, she has to basically change completely into a number of different outfits or a number of different stereotypical stuff that would be used to seduce or be seductive to any number of people. Because I guess if Tank Girl hasn't had enough like redesigns in kind of different kind of scenarios and stuff like that, then eventually she is to come on here and to hold this girl hostage basically for a dance number, but to also get Sam. Because in between the spots where Tank Girl and Jet is to get their remodel done, or to get their like tanks, and I'm gonna have to pause here. Okay, I needed a moment just to kind of like slow down because I'm like woof, like I'm kind of like fast tracking a lot of things, so I wanted to slow down a little bit. Plus I wanted to take a moment to just kind of like give myself a breather. So so here's also the thing. I guess that the water sucker device that I mentioned, like, doesn't, I don't think, have an actual name. Like, I think it's just called a sharp device, which is to have people get drained of water from their body. So there's no actual like name for that. So you could probably call it a sharp water draining device is probably what you could probably call it. Maybe that's what'll be the name of this. But anyways, instead of water sucker, because water sucker sounds a little goofy, maybe it's gonna be a sharp water draining device. So that's will probably what it'll be. So let's a little bit. So Tank and Jet are to be at this location where the Rippers were to tear and go and rip through a lot of the Water and Power men, again, leaving Kesley to have to get surgery upon his entire body because legitimately it just goes into him losing an arm that eventually some mad scientist goes and creates him some robotic arm and eventually goes and chops off Kesley's head to have his actual head just be some hologram where Kesley can actually be in an actual location, but he can still do his job in any number of tasks with people not even realizing that this Kesley isn't the actual Kesley. So, and eventually they'll show you that somewhere in the film. So, Tank Girl and Jet are to be at this location, and eventually they are to decide to take both a jet and a tank to go to this location where there is a girl that is to be some artist of sorts that is to just collect all kinds of random art all over these locations to have Tank Girl realize that this woman had taken the Ripper uh, chiseled piece of wood and also the other chiseled piece of wood that Tank Girl actually wanted from Sam. So Tank Girl is to ask this girl where she had gotten this from, and eventually the girl continues to lie. But eventually, once this girl continues to lie, eventually she is forced to tell the truth. So Tank Girl and Jet are wanting to go and rescue Sam, but they need a different paint job because having water and powered slogans slapped all over your vehicles isn't exactly the best thing when you're not actually a water and power associate. So the artist girl is to tell both of these girls that they can go and use the paint that she's to have to redecorate their vehicles, and so they do so. So that is the transition that we make from eventually once they get their new designs, they go off into this animated like scene to where they are to quickly and speedily rush out to make it to the spot of where Sam is being actually held. So they get there, they hold Madam hostage, dance numbers ensue, and they are to eventually get Sam and eventually make their way to getting back to the Ripper's hideout so they can basically try and have them help both Tank Girl and Jet with the Ripper's help try and get to Water and Power, because eventually Water and Power is to steal Sam away from Tank Girl, and so Tank Girl and Jet go and ask the Rippers for help, because I guess they're the only people that are to go up against Water and Power. So both Jet and Tank Girl are to go down into this bizarrish like uh, kind of like contraption that is to get them down to the Rippers, and the Rippers are to eventually gas these girls and eventually like take them and like try to like put truth serum into them to ask them all kind of questions. Tank Girl basically is still utterly defiant. No matter how much truth serum that she's going to get, she's not actually going to give them any answers. So we have the kind of oldest of all of them, that is DT, that is just kind of asking them questions about uh, about like why did you come here, blah 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 blah. Like so, like they came here to, of course, ask for these guys' help, and we also have one of the Rippers that is to ask Tank Girl like, hey, like how much did you get paid to get here? And the girl's like, $2.50 or something like that. That's what Tank Girl tells them. So these Rippers are gonna have to like go off into a separate room, keep these girls in a room filled with bowling balls to kind of decide what the heck they're going to do with them. Tank Girl keeps knocking on the door to talk to Booga and like kind of ask them things, and or kind of ask Booga things, and kind of ask like, hey, is there any way that I can like I can like work with you guys or be on your level? Like Booga asks like, well, hey, do you have any baseball cards? And she's like, no, I don't have any baseball cards, but I have a place to get them. And Booga's like, I no. So Tank Girl keeps having to try to win these guys over, and like the Rippers are kind of having this majority vote between all of them to kind of decide like what they are to do with these girls. Some of them are deciding that they want to like basically just hump these women because how rare would they actually be able to get women down here? And then some people are also decide to kill them off because they know like basically where these people live. But it seems the majority vote is that they are going to help these girls do this mission to get and take down Water and Power because really it's a solid plan. So eventually we start finding some backstory to some of these Rippers while Tank Girl and Jet is to talk to them. It seems that the guy who is to be Ice-T, who is T-Saint, evidently was a cop before he was turned into a Ripper. One of the others, who I think was actually Donner, I believe was a store manager before he was to be a Ripper. And I guess Booga mentions that supposedly he was a dog, and then he had been turned into a Ripper after this. And so it seems that all the Rippers are to say how they came to be was a guy named John Prophet was to turn all these things into Rippers because evidently there was some mixing of human and kangaroo DNA, and that's what turned them all into what they are to be now, like these half human, half kangaroo like people. So eventually, the Rippers and Tank Girl and Jet all go into a actual jet to go and try to make it onto the base. But Tank Girl is like adamantly like, I want to bring my tank with me, like because she has to bring her tank everywhere. So they try to sneak back into this base while trying to listen in on their code, and so eventually one of the Rippers is trying to talk to these people, but every single time his words are getting jumbled about what he's to say. And so Jet eventually tells uh, the radio personnel, like, hey, like, our plane is starting to lose electronics, and like there's like scrambling of messages going on here, so I'm going to tell you quickly what we need. And so the air traffic control guy like tells the girl to come on in, and so that's when they are to start taking down and taking out the Water and Power place, facility, whichever. All while that is going on, we have Kesley that is having put Sam in this pipe, and this pipe is eventually filling up with water, eventually going to drown Sam as things are to go on. So we are to make our way to have the Rippers go and kill most of these people, most of the Water and Power people. As they make their way through this, eventually Tank Girl is to find where Sam is and pull her out of there and save her safely, so that way she does not drown. So the next step, or the next thing to do, is to, of course, have Tank Girl, after seemingly everyone is to eventually get killed off, eventually to the point of eventually that Jet is going to get her revenge on Sergeant Small and be able to kill him off, because it seems that Sergeant Small eventually was realizing how everyone was ending up dead, and so he was like, dude, screw this, like, I am out, like, I'm getting out of here, but eventually he ends up getting killed anyways. So this all leads to eventually have Tank Girl having to fight out, of course, Kesley. So Tank Girl is to see that Kesley has this robotic arm that seems not all quite that easy to fight him off hand to hand, because he has this arm that has all these blades coming out of it. So it seems that Tank Girl and Kesley are fighting on this bridge, and Kesley is to start ripping apart this bridge that they are to be on. So Tank Girl is realizing, yeah, this isn't not going to work. So uh, Tank Girl is to try to get Kesley much more in a open spot to where her tank can show up and help her out in this situation. Uh, Eventually, Tank Girl is to push uh, Kesley into this location where his arm is to start to get electrified. And immediately, Tank Girl is to assume naturally that she has won at this point, that Kesley is going to be forever stuck there. But Tank Girl goes and wants to punch Kesley in the face to realize that his face is not really there, that his face is just a hologram. And so Tank Girl will never win because Kesley isn't actually there. That really his head is pretty much elsewhere, and so Tank Girl will never actually win. But here's the thing. So when Kesley gets from out of this electric fence like spot, Tank Girl has her tank show up, and the problem with her tank is that she's out of ammo. Tank Girl goes into her tank and goes and starts tossing beer into the spot where things are to be fired off. So all of a sudden, Kesley gets from out of his electrified spot to eventually now starting to dodge beer cans coming at him as he's slicing and dicing through them, which bizarrely, here's what doesn't make sense. So these cans are coming at him, and it obviously feels like he's getting attacked by pillows or something. Because when Kesley is to kind of cut through these beers or whatever, it looks like he is being attacked by like feathers or something. Because you can see like in one spot, it seemed like a feather had hit his like face. And it's like, okay, so was he getting hit? Like, what was he getting hit with? Was he getting hit with pillows? What was he getting hit with? Uh, I don't know. That seemed weird. Like a beer pillow, maybe. I don't know. It just looked kind of weird to me. But uh, Kesley is to just just start continually ripping through a bunch of these beers to eventually Tank Girl keeps tossing them in, tossing them in, tossing them in, to eventually have Kesley getting uh, like hit. And eventually what Tank Girl is to do, she's to eventually get out of her tank, and Kesley is still assuming naturally that he is going to win out of all of this. Well, Tank Girl is to take the sharp uh, water draining device and attach it to Kesley's body, so it drains all the water from out of him to make his body useless. So then all Kesley has left is his head in some other location, but with no body to be able to control. Like, what's like, he's basically going to lose because no one is going to be able to like get Kesley from anywhere because all of his other men are dead, and so Kesley is just to be off to die either way. So Tank Girl still wins. So Tank Girl wins. Corporation is to fall and crumble, and now basically the Rippers uh, and everybody are to realize that like they can basically do whatever they want now. Here is also the thing. So before Tank Girl and everybody were to get to the Water and Power spot and fight Kesley, eventually they were going to go and steal some crates from the Water and Power to see what the crates were. And eventually they were to find that most of it was all either dirt or something to tick off the Rippers to eventually find a body of John Prophet, and that angered the Rippers. Plus, also, during this spot of when they are to go into the water and power, eventually we had DT, who was the only Ripper who was to actually be killed during this spot, which again angered the Rippers event also to go and want to kill everyone off. So there's some interesting spots there, uh, but eventually, like once we kill off Kesley, to me, like this movie is pretty much over. Um, Pretty much the rest of this is just all having a happy ending and eventually going everybody going their ways, and uh, really just the movie ends with kind of like a very like animated kind of style and whichever. But anyways, so like really to me, like the very ending is Kesley being defeated, but yeah, basically after that, like it's pretty much happy ending. So with that said, I think I'm gonna try to get out of here so I can make this review done for today. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.